playground games, and we're here at Legoland in Billund to give you guys an exclusive behind-the-scenes look at everything that went into making the LEGO Speed Champions expansion for Forza Horizon 4. I'm here in the LEGO Ideas house and I'm joined by Chris Stamp, who is a LEGO designer. You've obviously worked very closely with our car team and the process of taking these cars and bringing them to life within Forza. How has that process been?
I'm personally a big fan, so working on this has been a dream come true. I know that we've talked a lot about just how can we actually edit this LEGO model to be able to move. It was actually from your side. You were able to make some kind of custom elements that even followed our system guidelines. After a while, it was like talking to people who knew LEGO just as well as we did.
When I found out it was Speed Champions cars that we were putting in the game, very first thing being a car guy was which ones? Because, you know, we all have our favorites.
Speed Champions blend my two passions really. LEGO from when I was a kid, and even still, I still build lots of LEGO. And my passion for cars really is the two perfect combinations.
What I enjoy most about the Speed Champions line is the attention to detail with the design language in the cars. McLaren Senna looks like a McLaren Senna. The Ferrari F40, the silhouette is just spot on.
We've had a lot of discussions about how high should the LEGO logo be raised on the studs, or if you've got so many studs next to each other, what should the orientation be?
There was a lot of, hey, you know, segment counts, you know, extrusion lengths. You know, do we want to bevel this? Do we want to normal map something? Do we want to model it out? So there was a lot of getting really close to the bricks, figuring how much of the detail do we want to actually represent in modeling, represent in texturing or in a shader.
We found out what plastic was used on the LEGO, which is ABS plastic. And so I went outside with these large slabs of plastic, scrubbing them across the road in our car park. That allowed us to understand how the material would react to situations or scenarios, and they were details that you just don't normally think about.
We're talking about plastic that wears differently. If you do the imperfection at the same scale of a real car, then you lose that sense of scale on a Speed Champions car.
How has working with manufacturers changed how you think about cars?
Drastically, to be honest with you. Take the Senna for example. They wanted the car at the back to go down because if it's on a track, that'll affect the car behind it, and all of these kind of little details that you would never think, or road safety regulations. So a spoiler can't stick out too far because if there's an accident, it has this effect and this effect. Every car you learn a different story, and it adds on to the knowledge that you've learned from the last one. So it's definitely an eye-opener of what goes into making each one.
Working with McLaren is actually a lot of fun. We were one of few partners that actually got to see the first sketches of the Senna. I think you guys might have been as well.
We were one of the other ones.
Yeah. So because of that, it felt like a good fit. And then we worked with them when they were developing the car. What they came up with was really amazing.
It was the LaFerrari that I had on my desk, and I was trying to get a camera like inside the cockpit to get a view out through the windshield to get sort of a sense of the refraction that you get from that inside view. It's super interesting what you see when you get in really close, and that there's sort of like micro details and the sort of ever so slight imperfections you sometimes get in the bricks.
We obviously had to illuminate the cars. We didn't just want to remove the insides of the brick and put in a new light cluster. Instead, we looked at the LEGO movies and the way they were illuminated the inside of the brick and letting that radiate out. It retains the awesome LEGO look, and it looks like you're shining a torch through a brick, which it just looks phenomenal.
The moulding, that was probably one of the main things that stood out to me as a kind of, oh wow, they've even added that level of detail. When you look closely enough and you're really looking at maybe from a minifigures perspective, you can see the small imperfections that came through from the moulding. So you can see where the pins and the material flow and things like this. And you've been able to replicate that in the game. I didn't even expect us to go to that level of detail, so that was really great.
We had to make some changes to the models actually so that they could drive. For example, the Speed Champions, the way the wheels are mounted, they can't turn in the front wheel arch, so we've had to create our own brick that allows for that. But we did it in a way that LEGO would have done it, and we actually remodeled the entire front of the kit.
The way that the LEGO Speed Champions car sits, the wheel is very tightly fit inside the wheel arch, and there's not much room for the suspension to move. Now, if you were driving that vehicle, that would be a very hard, awkward ride. So we had to create a suspension rig to allow enough travel for the suspension to droop, but also so it compresses neatly under the wheel arch and doesn't intersect the wheel arch.
We had to focus heavily on things like the center of roll height, anti-pitch and anti-dive aspects of the suspension to try and control the rate of load transfer. So that's when you go into a corner, how quickly is the weight shifting from one side to another? When you're accelerating, how quickly is it going back? And under brake, and how quick does it go forwards? So we were using all the aspects of our system to get the load moving in the fashion we wanted it to.
these cars are going to react differently to the environment than what the real cars would. If it does hit a barrier or something, then a piece comes off. It's not just that the piece gets dented and broken and bent. I mean, the fact that you've stayed true to that, I think that's really cool as well.
So the damage is a really fun part of the project for me, actually. I helped put together the spec of what parts would fall off. When you're a kid and you're running it around on your carpet, parts fall off of them. That's the joy of Lego. So I spent an afternoon at my desk with a wall next to me, just running the cars in various manners into a wall to see what actually comes off of the cars. And from that, we worked out what parts were going to come off when you do damage them.
Probably my favourite car that we've made is probably the classic Mini.
You also use like a meat cleaver for the mud flaps. Whenever you can almost misuse a piece.
Exactly.
It's like people will really enjoy that.
Going back to the centre, because with the headlights, that's meant to be axe blade, but then it's used sideways to be a headlight. Or the cockpit to get the doors it's not used the normal stacking technique, it's used upside down where it sits in place to get that detail.
The brake lights there, are they like is that an Exonite piece?
That's also an Exonite, yeah, so that was a spear tip that we used as well.
One of the restrictions that I've enjoyed is how inside the Speed Champions car, the minifig's hands can't actually reach the steering wheel. But in the game, you can go first person, so you're looking at the wheel through the minifig's eyes. And his hands are either side of the wheel doing this, and then the wheel's turning in the middle.
I just feel like I'm a child again, running Lego cars through piles of Lego bricks, like all the smashable flowers and everything we have around. It's just, there's something so joyously childlike about driving around in the world.